What's up, investors and people of Reddit, it's the Russian Dude, and this is your daily update on Russian-Ukrainian war as of Wednesday, April 6th. And this time I have two major stories to talk about with you today. The first one is the short-sighted decision of Russian soldiers to dig in the forests of Chernobyl, which once again released radiation in the air. It's a very disturbing event, so please make sure to stay for that one. And second is the list of countries' guarantors presented by President Zelensky. This event hopefully brings us one step closer towards the end of war, and I'm very interested in what you have to say about this. I will also briefly present some other events and news that happened today. The following story confirms once again the incredible stupidity of some Russian soldiers. So I assume most of you know what happened in Chernobyl in 1986, which by the way at that time was just one single country called USSR. Long story short, there was an explosion in a nuclear power plant in city of Pripyat, which released an incredible amount of radiation in the air. And the reason why this explosion happened is because of notorious lies during that era. But thanks to thousands of people sacrificing their lives in the literally worst way possible, the development of this disaster was stopped. Actions that were taken both by Russians and Ukrainians prevented the spread of radiation across entire Europe and possibly the world. And so, as a result, the exclusion zone in Chernobyl was created, which basically means it was kinda relatively safe, but the radiation was still present there. And one of the most radioactive materials that still remained there was the soil, which the people of the USSR had to literally turn upside down to hide the top radioactive layer below normal layer. And well, before you even know it, Russian soldiers started digging trenches in this exclusion zone, Chernobyl, which basically means they opened this top layer once again, releasing the radiation back into the air. And I have literally no idea, it's either these Russian soldiers, they never heard about Chernobyl disaster, or they were just blindly following suicidal orders from their generals and officers. But as a result, some soldiers had to sit inside these radioactive trenches for days or even weeks. And the result, as you can guess already, some of these Russian soldiers got their lethal doses of radiation. As of now, it is reported that the Russian army has left Chernobyl zone, but I don't think that they closed all these trenches, which basically means that even until now the radiation is still releasing back into the air. And these charts show how different age groups in Russia respond to the war in Ukraine. Forgive me for my lousy translation, but dark blue says support 100%, light blue says most likely I support, yellow says most likely I do not support, red says I definitely do not support, and gray says I cannot say for sure. And even though, unfortunately, according to this graph, the majority of Russians support the military actions on Ukraine in some way, but there is still hope. And it never felt better for me than it is today to be a part of minority. And by the way, if you like this style of daily news reporting, feel free to like this video and subscribe to my channel. And in this picture you can see how different countries respond to the war in Ukraine. Feel free to pause this video if you want to see how your country officially responded. This video shows the current condition of the most ruined city in Ukraine, Mariupol. Last night a man crashed his car into the wall of the Russian embassy in Bucharest, Romania. Some of you might heard that Vladimir Putin allegedly owns mega yacht called Scheherazade worth of approximately 700 million euros. And if it's the very first time you hear about this, go ahead and check one of my previous videos. And so here we have interior pictures of Putin's previous yacht called Graceful, which was approximately estimated to be $100 million. In this video you can see multiple missile rocket launcher system Grad in action. This is the way some people protest in front of Parliament of Georgia, raising the awareness of massacre in Bucha. Last week, extremely important negotiations between Russia and Ukraine happened in Turkey. The main purpose of these talks was obviously to bring the end of the war one step closer. And among several points that both countries agreed upon was to make Ukraine a neutral country, which basically means that Ukraine must not have the presence of international military bases on its territories, nor have access to nuclear weapons. In response to this Russian demand, Ukraine was asking for several country guarantors, which are able to provide security to Ukraine. And the security in this case means is just in case there is once again military intervention in the territory of Ukraine, the country guarantors have to assist Ukraine with this conflict. And so, as of today, the President of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, finally announced the first list of such country guarantors. And among them is the United States of America, UK, Turkey, Poland, Germany, France and Israel. Zelensky also mentioned that this is not the final list of countries guarantors, and he expects more countries to join this list. The next step is for representatives of these countries to meet and discuss what safety specifically means. And only after this, Ukraine will be once again ready to meet with Russia to discuss the agreements. In this video you can see tanks from Czech Republic being sent to Ukraine, and the most important thing about this video is that Czech Republic is the first NATO country that sent heavy machinery to Ukraine. The United States of America announced its next sanctions against Russia, and one of the main points of these sanctions is that there is a total ban of investments in Russian economy. In addition to that, the US stops Russian bond payments, which only increases the risk of default of the country. And the way they did it is by freezing around $600 million that belongs to Russia, which are held in the reserves at US banks. Which basically means that yes, technically Russia can pay for its sovereign debt, it's just that the US doesn't allow for this to happen. And because of this, the prices for credit default swaps against Russian default has increased dramatically. At first you can see a big spike which started at the end of February and peaked around beginning of March, and this was obviously when Russia invaded Ukraine. At this point everyone was thinking that yes, Russia will be at default, but eventually Russia was able to make its debt payments. And because of this you can see that graph went down once again. But because of this news that the US will basically prohibit Russia from paying its debt, even though Russia can do it, the prices of credit default swaps started increasing once again. In this picture you can see some people turning the lake, which is across the Russian embassy in Vilnius, Lithuania, turning to be in the color of blood. And these are the pictures from Bucha, Ukraine. In this video you can see lots of destroyed and abandoned military vehicles of Russian army in Gostomel, Ukraine. Russian army started leaving some territories of Ukraine, which includes Kiev region. And the press secretary of Russia, Dmitry Peskov, said that this army reallocation is a goodwill from Russian side, which basically means, according to him, that Russia took out forces just not to escalate the conflict even further, so that Russia and Ukraine can have its talks in the future. But at the same time, Ukraine says that the reason why Russian army is leaving Kiev region is because they were no longer able to advance inside the city. Today, the Russian currency ruble has strengthened itself against US dollar even more. Just as a reminder, at one point for $1 people were ready to give about 140 rubles. And as of today, at one point ruble reached around 79 rubles per dollar, which brings the current numbers to pre-war exchange rate. And according to this article from Russian media, around 44% of Russians are expecting that the ruble will be strengthening even further. The Chinese media source Global Times says that actions that the US takes in this conflict only extends the war between Russia and Ukraine. The main reasons that this media source gives us is that the US continues to send weapons to Ukraine and at the same time gives more sanctions against Russia, which according to them does not look even close like the peaceful resolution of the conflict. And basically the summary of this article is that the US will only make it worse for both countries. And in the end it gives the statistics that during its military intervention in Afghanistan, the USA killed approximately 100,000 civilians. Some government officials decided to give Russians one more vacation day in May. And the main reason why would they do it, they say, is that to give Russians more time to grow their own food. Well, I mean, it's not a secret that limiting the import of food inside Russia already created pretty dire situation, but releasing articles and proposals like this only confirms that we are in big trouble. There was also this article which basically said that in case you're feeling hungry, you should just drink a glass of warm water, which in my understanding the Russian government indirectly prepares its population in case there are food shortages. The London marine insurance market labels all Russian waters a high risk, which basically means that all the water which surrounds Russia is considered to be technically a military territory. And in case ships transporting goods in and out from Russia want to pass these waters, they have to pay additional 5% premium. And this 5% is calculated from the total combined worth of entire ship. And it makes it very unprofitable for most carriers, which in return limits the trading activity between Russia and other countries even further. The Parliament of Ukraine proposed to recognize the actions of Russian army on the territory of Ukraine as a genocide. And in case the genocide is legally recognized, Ukraine, along with some allied countries, will be investigating the crimes done by the Russian Russian army. And all the ones who will be proven guilty will be criminally prosecuted. In addition to that, families which were affected by this genocide will be supported in all means possible. The mayor of Bucha, Anatoly Fedoruk, mentioned that approximately 320 civilians were killed by the Russian army. In response to that, the Ministry of Defense of Russia said that the Russian army hasn't killed any single civilian. In this video you can see the condition of the city of Borodyanka, Ukraine. And in this video you can see a bus which was carrying civilians between two Ukrainian cities, Izum and Slavyansk. The Pope Francis received Ukrainian flag that was sent to him from Bucha. Some people in Bulgaria are protesting in front of Bulgarian parliament, demanding that the NATO would stop sending weapons to Ukraine. In their understanding, it only extends the war in this territory. As of today, 8,257 sanctions were imposed on Russia. Thank you so much for your attention, stay safe and see you tomorrow.